I never thought my life would become a cautionary tale. But here I am, ready to share the truth I've hidden for so long. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I lost myself in a marriage that nearly destroyed me, and how I found the strength to reclaim my life for my children. When I first met Michael at that coffee shop on Fifth Avenue, I thought I had met my soulmate. He was charming, attentive, and made me feel like the most important person in the world. His dark eyes sparkled when he laughed, and his smile could light up the darkest room. He brought me flowers every Friday, remembered every small detail I mentioned, and treated me like a princess. My friends envied what we had. My mother adored him. Everyone said I was lucky to have found such a gentleman in this modern world where good men seemed extinct. Our courtship was a whirlwind of romantic dinners, long walks through Central Park, and conversations that lasted until dawn. He spoke of building a future together, of the family we would create, of growing old on a porch somewhere watching our grandchildren play. I believed every word because I wanted to believe. Love had found me, and I surrendered to it completely, never imagining that the man holding my hand would one day become my prison warden. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of since I was a little girl. White roses everywhere, 200 guests, a dress that made me feel like royalty. As I walked down that aisle and saw Michael waiting for me at the altar, tears streaming down his face, I felt certain I was making the right choice. Our vows echoed through the church, promising love, honor, and cherishing until death. I meant every word. I thought he did too. The change didn't happen overnight. It started small, so subtle I almost didn't notice. A comment about my skirt being too short. A suggestion that maybe I didn't need to see my college friends so often. A look of disapproval when I laughed too loudly at a party. At first, I dismissed these moments as normal adjustments to married life. After all, compromise is part of any relationship, right? I wanted to be a good wife, so I adjusted my hemlines, saw my friends less frequently, and tried to be more reserved in public. I told myself I was being mature, that this was what partnership looked like. Then I got pregnant with our first child, Emma. I was overjoyed, imagining the family we would build together. But during those 9 months, something shifted more dramatically. Michael became increasingly controlling about what I ate, where I went, who I spoke to. He said it was because he cared about the baby, about my health. He insisted on coming to every doctor's appointment, which I initially found sweet until I realized he was monitoring everything I said to my physician. He started controlling our finances, saying a pregnant woman shouldn't worry about money matters. I handed over my credit cards willingly, trusting him to take care of us. Emma was born on a rainy Tuesday in April, and holding her tiny body against my chest, I felt a love so fierce it terrified me. She was perfect, with wisps of dark hair and eyes that seemed to see straight into my soul. I promised her silently that I would give her the world, that I would be the mother she deserved. Michael seemed happy too at first. He took photos, called his parents, handed out cigars at work. But when we brought Emma home from the hospital, reality set in. The sleepless nights, the constant crying, the exhaustion that seeped into my bones, all of it fell on my shoulders alone. Michael said he needed his sleep for work, that providing for the family was his responsibility, and I needed to handle the home front. So I did. I woke up every 2 hours to feed Emma, changed countless diapers, soothed her cries, cleaned the house, did the laundry, cooked the meals, all while my body was still healing from childbirth. I was drowning in responsibility, but whenever I tried to express how overwhelmed I felt, Michael would remind me that women had been doing this for thousands of years, that my own mother had raised 4 children. His implication was clear. I should be able to handle 1 baby without complaining. Then the criticism began in earnest. The house wasn't clean enough. Dinner wasn't ready on time. Emma was crying too much. which meant I must be doing something wrong. I wasn't losing the baby weight fast enough. I looked tired all the time. Every day brought a new list of my failures, delivered in a tone that started as disappointed and gradually became contemptuous. I tried harder, slept less, pushed myself until I was running on fumes in desperation. Nothing I did was ever good enough. The first time Michael raised his hand to me, Emma was 6 months old. I had forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning, and dinner was late because Emma had been fussy all afternoon. He came home from work already irritated, and when he saw me still in my pajamas with spit up on my shoulder, something in him snapped. He grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises in the shape of his fingers. He shook me, his face inches from mine, screaming that I was worthless, lazy, and embarrassment. Then he shoved me backward and I stumbled, barely catching myself on the kitchen counter. Emma started crying in her bouncer, and Michael stormed out, leaving me shaking on the floor. That night, after he had calmed down and apologized, he held me while I cried and swore it would never happen again. He said work stress had gotten to him, that he hadn't meant it, that he loved me more than anything. He brought home flowers the next day and took me to my favorite restaurant that weekend, arranging for his mother to watch Emma. I wanted so desperately to believe this was an isolated incident, that the man I married was still in there somewhere. So I forgave him. That was my first mistake in a long line of mistakes that would follow. But it did happen again. And again. And again. Each time the violence escalated. A shove became a slap. A slap became a punch. He learned to hit me where the bruises wouldn't show, where I could hide the evidence under long sleeves and strategic makeup. My arms, my ribs, my back. These became his canvas for expressing his anger. And there was always something to be angry about. I breathed wrong. I looked at him wrong. I spoke when I shouldn't have or stayed silent when he expected a response. The rules kept changing and I could never keep up. When Emma was 2, I got pregnant again. I hadn't planned it, wasn't sure I could handle another child given how my life had become. But when I saw those 2 pink lines, hope bloomed in my chest. Maybe a second baby would bring back the man I married. Maybe this would fix whatever had broken between us. I told Michael over a homemade dinner, Emma already asleep upstairs. His reaction was not what I expected. He stared at me for a long moment, then asked me if I was trying to trap him, to make it harder for him to leave. The accusation stunned me. I had never considered leaving, had never even spoken the word divorce. But apparently it had been on his mind. My pregnancy with Jacob was harder than the first. Morning sickness lasted all day. My body ached constantly. Taking care of Emma while growing another human being pushed me to my limits. And Michael had checked out almost completely. He worked late more often, came home smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, barely glanced at Emma anymore. When I asked where he had been, who he had been with, he called me paranoid, jealous, insecure. He said I had let myself go, that I was no fun anymore, that he needed space to breathe. Space to breathe meant other women, I learned. Women he met at bars, at conferences, through dating apps he didn't bother to hide on his phone. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical abuse. At least when he hit me, I could understand it as violence, as wrong. But this rejection, this replacement of me while I carried his child and raised his daughter, this felt like an erasure of my entire existence. I wasn't even worth staying faithful to. I confronted him one night after finding explicit messages on his phone, and he laughed. Actually laughed at my tears. He told me I should be grateful he came home at all, that plenty of men left their wives completely. He was still providing a roof over my head, food on the table, wasn't he? What more did I want? Jacob was born in September. A beautiful baby boy with Michael's nose in my eyes. I loved him instantly, fiercely. But I also felt a crushing weight settle on my chest. Now I had 2 children depending on me, 2 little lives tied to a man who had become a stranger, a monster. Michael was at a work function when I went into labor. He didn't make it to the hospital in time for the birth, showing up 3 hours later, visibly drunk, reeking of whiskey and another woman's perfume. He looked at Jacob in my arms with something like resentment, as if this innocent baby was somehow an inconvenience to his life. The years that followed blurred together in a haze of survival. Emma started preschool, Jacob learned to walk, and I became a ghost in my own life. I cooked, cleaned, managed the household, cared for the children, all while walking on eggshells around Michael's unpredictable moods. Good days were rare, precious, and I clung to them desperately, using them as evidence that maybe things could get better. But bad days far outnumbered the good. Michael's temper grew shorter, his violence more frequent, his affairs more blatant. He started bringing rules home, written lists of expectations. Wake-up time, meal schedules, cleaning routines, how the children should behave, what I should wear, who I could talk to. He checked my phone regularly, monitored my email, tracked my car's mileage to ensure I went only where I said I was going. I had no privacy, no autonomy, no life beyond the walls of our house. When my friends called, he stood nearby, listening to every word until I learned to keep conversations brief and meaningless. Eventually, they stopped calling. I didn't blame them. I had become a shell of the person they once knew. My family noticed something was wrong, but I had become an expert liar. When my mother asked about the weight I had lost, I blamed stress and busy schedules. When my sister commented on a bruise peeking out from my collar, I invented a story about walking into a cabinet. When my father wondered why Michael never let me visit alone anymore, I said we preferred spending time together as a family. The lies came easier with practice, and I convinced myself I was protecting everyone. If they knew the truth, what could they do anyway? Michael had made it clear that if I ever left, he would destroy me, take the children, ensure I had nothing. I believed him because by then I believed I deserved nothing. Emma started elementary school, a bright, curious child who loved reading and drawing. She adored her little brother, protecting him with a fierceness that reminded me of myself before I had been broken down. Jacob was 4, full of energy and questions and laughter that could light up the darkest days. My children were my entire world, the only reason I kept breathing when everything else felt pointless. I watched them play together in the backyard, building forts and creating imaginary worlds, and I ached knowing they were growing up in a house filled with violence and fear. They saw things children should never see. Emma had witnessed Michael grab me by the throat, pin me against the wall, his face red with rage while I struggled to breathe. Jacob had been in his high chair when Michael threw a plate across the room, shattering it against the wall inches from my head. They heard the screaming, the crying, the hateful words hurled like weapons. I tried to shield them, to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but how do you hide a storm when you're living in the center of it? The breaking point came on a Wednesday night in March, 3 months before Emma's 9th birthday. Michael had been out late again, came home after midnight, drunk and mean. I was in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner, had waited up because not waiting up was also grounds for punishment. He walked in, looked around at the spotless kitchen, and found something to criticize anyway. A glass in the sink. 1 glass. I tried to explain that I had just used it for water, was about to wash it, but he wasn't interested in explanations. He grabbed my hair, yanked my head back so hard I felt something pop in my neck, and slammed my face into the counter. Pain exploded across my cheekbone, blood filling my mouth from where my teeth cut into my lip. I fell to the floor and he kicked me in the ribs once, twice, 3 times. I curled into a ball, trying to protect my vital organs, and through the pain and fear, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Emma appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, her eyes wide with horror. What happened next changed everything. My brave, beautiful daughter didn't cry or run away. She stepped forward, placed herself between Michael and me, and told him in a voice that shook but didn't break to stop hurting her mother. She was 8 years old and standing up to a man who terrified me. Michael laughed, a cruel sound that made my blood run cold, and raised his hand to her. That's when something inside me, something I thought had died years ago, roared back to life. I launched myself from the floor, positioned myself in front of Emma, and told Michael that if he touched our daughter, I would kill him. I meant it. I would have found a way somehow. For the first time in years, Michael looked uncertain. He lowered his hand, called me a worthless bitch, and stormed upstairs to our bedroom, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I grabbed Emma, held her tight, and we both trembled in the kitchen until dawn. That morning, while Michael was passed out upstairs, I started planning. I couldn't stay anymore. My own suffering was one thing, but Emma had put herself in danger to protect me. Jacob was growing up thinking this was what family looked like. I couldn't let them live this way another day. But leaving wasn't simple. I had no money of my own, no job, nowhere to go. Michael controlled everything. I needed to be smart, patient, careful. I started small. I created an email account Michael didn't know about, accessed only from the library when I took the kids to story time. I researched domestic violence resources, learned about restraining orders and custody laws, memorized the numbers for shelters and legal aid. I began hiding small amounts of money, $1 here and there from grocery shopping, change from errands, building an emergency fund. I took photos of my injuries when Michael was at work, documenting the evidence I might need later. I made copies of important documents, birth certificates and social security cards, hiding them at the bottom of Emma's toy box. For 3 months, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was still the obedient wife, submitting to Michael's rules, absorbing his abuse, pretending everything was normal. But underneath, I was planning my escape with the focus of a general preparing for war. Emma knew something was different. She would catch me staring into space, planning, and she would squeeze my hand, a silent show of support that broke my heart and filled it simultaneously. Then Michael found the hidden money. I had been so careful, but I had underestimated his paranoia. He tore through the house like a tornado, overturning drawers, emptying closets, searching for what else I might be hiding. When he discovered the cash, nearly $200 that represented 3 months of careful saving, he lost whatever remaining control he had. He beat me worse than he ever had before, using not just his fists but a belt, leaving welts and bruises across my back and legs that made it agony to move. When he finally exhausted himself, he locked me in our bedroom, actually locked the door from the outside, trapping me like an animal. I heard him telling the children that mommy was sick, needed to rest, couldn't be disturbed. Emma tried to argue, and I heard the sound of a slap, her cry of pain. Something inside me shattered completely. I was done. I was leaving that night no matter what it took. I waited until Michael fell asleep, his snoring audible through the door. The window in our bedroom overlooked the back porch, a 12-foot drop but manageable if I was careful. I stuffed clothes into a pillowcase, grabbed the documents from Emma's room, and woke both children quietly. I told them we were going on an adventure, needed to be very quiet like mice. Jacob thought it was a game. Emma understood it was survival. Getting out that window with 2 children was terrifying. I lowered Emma first, then Jacob, then dropped our makeshift bag before climbing out myself. The fall jarred every injured part of my body, but I bit back my cry of pain and grabbed my children's hands. We ran through the darkness in our pajamas with nowhere to go but away. I had $43 in my pocket, the emergency money I had managed to grab from its new hiding spot, and no plan beyond getting as far from that house as possible. We walked for hours through the night, Emma carrying Jacob when he got tired, me fighting through pain and fear and determination. As dawn broke, we reached a convenience store, and I used their phone to call a domestic violence hotline. The woman who answered had a kind voice that made me cry, the first sympathetic voice I had heard in years. She directed me to a shelter across town, told me help was available, that I had done the right thing by leaving. The shelter was a converted apartment building, nondescript on purpose to keep residents safe. They took us in immediately, no questions asked, no judgment offered. They gave us a small room with 2 beds, clean sheets that smelled like lavender, and privacy. That first night in the shelter, lying on a bed that wasn't my own with my children curled against me, I felt safer than I had in years despite having nothing. Michael reported us missing. The police came to the shelter, but the staff knew how to handle these situations. I showed them my injuries, the photos I had taken, told them everything. They filed a report, helped me obtain an emergency restraining order, connected me with a lawyer who worked with domestic violence survivors. For the first time, I had people on my side who believed me, who saw Michael for what he was. He violated the restraining order 3 times in the first 2 weeks. Showed up at the shelter, at the kids' new school, at the grocery store where I had found a part-time job stocking shelves on overnight shifts. Each time we called the police. Each time he was arrested and released. The system felt broken, unable to truly protect us, and I lived in constant fear that one day he would succeed in taking us back. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Michael fought for custody out of spite, not love. His lawyer painted me as an unfit mother who had kidnapped the children, abandoned the marital home, suffered from mental instability. My lawyer countered with photos of my injuries, medical records, testimony from the shelter staff. The battle dragged on for months, each court appearance another trauma, another chance for Michael to intimidate me with his presence. But something had changed in me. I wasn't the frightened woman who had lived in that house anymore. I had found my voice again, my strength, my will to fight. When Michael's lawyer tried to break me on the stand, I looked directly at Michael and told the truth about every beating, every threat, every way he had tried to destroy me. I watched his face turn red with rage, and instead of fear I felt power. The judge awarded me full custody with supervised visitation for Michael pending completion of anger management and substance abuse programs he never completed. I was granted a permanent restraining order. The house was sold, assets divided, and while I didn't get much, I got enough to start over. More importantly, I got my freedom and my children. We moved to a different state, a small city where no one knew us, where we could build new lives without looking over our shoulders constantly. I rented a modest apartment in a safe neighborhood with good schools. Emma and Jacob shared a bedroom, and I slept on a couch that converted to a bed, but it was ours, earned through our own strength and suffering. Finding work was challenging with a resume gap of nearly a decade, but I was determined. I started as a cashier at a local grocery store, working my way up to assistant manager within a year. The pay wasn't great, but it was honest money that I earned and controlled. I took online courses at night after the kids went to bed, working toward a degree in social work. I wanted to help other women like me, to be the voice of hope I had so desperately needed. Emma thrived in her new school, making friends quickly, joining the art club, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Jacob became more confident, less anxious, his nightmares finally stopping. They both started therapy, processing the trauma they had witnessed and experienced. I started therapy too, unpacking years of abuse, learning to trust again, to see my worth, to understand that what happened to me wasn't my fault. The healing process wasn't linear. There were setbacks, hard days when the weight of everything felt crushing. Sometimes I cried in the shower so the kids wouldn't hear. Sometimes I woke up from nightmares where Michael had found us, dragged us back. Sometimes simple things triggered panic attacks, a raised voice, a slammed door, the smell of whiskey. But slowly, day by day, we rebuilt ourselves. Emma turned into an amazing young woman, strong and compassionate, determined to become a lawyer who helps women and children. She told me once that watching me fight to save us taught her that she never had to accept less than she deserved, that she had the power to change her circumstances no matter how impossible it seemed. She said I was her hero. I cried for an hour after that conversation, overwhelmed by pride and grief for the childhood she lost but grateful for the person she was becoming. Jacob grew into a gentle, kind teenager who treated everyone with respect. He volunteered at animal shelters, tutored younger kids in math, made us laugh with his terrible jokes. He told me he never wanted to be like his father, that he remembered the fear and had chosen a different path. The fact that he emerged from that darkness with his heart intact felt like a miracle I didn't deserve but would forever treasure. As for me, I finished my degree and got my license as a social worker. I now work at the same shelter that once saved us, helping other women find the strength to leave, guiding them through the legal system, showing them that life exists on the other side of abuse. Every woman I help is a step toward healing my own wounds, toward making meaning from suffering. Michael disappeared from our lives after the divorce was finalized. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he remarried quickly, another woman who didn't know what she was getting into. I felt sorry for her but knew I couldn't save everyone, that some people have to walk their own path to destruction. The restraining order remains in place, will remain in place forever if I have my way. The children are now adults or nearly there, able to make their own choices about contact with their father. Neither has chosen to reach out. Sometimes people ask me why I stayed so long, why I didn't leave sooner, and I understand their confusion. From the outside it seems simple. If someone hurts you, you leave. But abuse doesn't work that way. It's a slow erosion of self, a systematic destruction of confidence and identity. By the time I realized how bad things had gotten, I had been conditioned to believe I deserved it, that I couldn't survive without him, that my children needed their father no matter what he did to their mother. Leaving wasn't weakness arriving late. It was strength arriving in its own time. It was choosing the unknown terror of starting over with nothing over the known terror of staying and dying slowly, body and soul. It was deciding that my children deserved better, that I deserved better, that survival wasn't enough anymore, and we needed to truly live. I wish I could tell you that everything is perfect now, that we never struggle, that trauma doesn't leave lasting marks. That would be a lie. Emma still flinches at sudden movements. Jacob still struggles with anxiety about conflict. I still have moments where old programming kicks in, where I catch myself trying to be perfect, to anticipate displeasure, to make myself smaller. Healing from abuse is lifelong work, not a destination but a journey we walk together. But here's what I can tell you: we laugh now. We have movie nights with too much popcorn. We take walks where we talk about everything and nothing. We celebrate holidays without tension, birthdays without fear. We have built a home filled with love and safety, where raised voices mean excitement, not danger, where closed doors mean privacy, not punishment. We have built a life where we are free. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, please hear me. You are not alone. What is happening to you is not your fault. You are not weak, stupid, or deserving of abuse. Love should never hurt, and you deserve so much better than what you have. I know you're scared. I know leaving feels impossible. I know you think you can't survive on your own. I thought all those things too, and I was wrong. There are people who will help you. Resources available, paths forward even when you can't see them. It won't be easy. Some days it will be the hardest thing you've ever done. But I promise you, on the other side of that fear is freedom, is peace, is the life you deserve to live. Your children, if you have them, are watching and learning what love looks like from you. Show them that love means respect, safety, equality. Show them that they never have to accept abuse, that they have the power to walk away. My name is Sarah and I survived. More than that, I rebuilt a beautiful life from the ashes of my worst nightmare. My children are thriving. I am thriving. We are living proof that escape is possible, that healing happens, that there is life after abuse. If I can do it with nothing but determination and love for my children, so can you. The cage I once called home no longer exists. In its place stands a life I built brick by brick, through tears and determination, and the unwavering belief that I deserved better. And every single day, I wake up grateful for the courage I found in my darkest moment, for the daughter who showed me bravery when I had forgotten what it looked like, for the son whose gentleness reminded me goodness still existed, and for the strength I didn't know I possessed until I absolutely needed it. This is my story. This is my truth. And if it helps even one person find the courage to leave, to survive, to reclaim their life, then every moment of suffering will have served a purpose. You are worth saving. Your life matters. Your happiness matters. Please, if you need help, reach out. The first step is terrifying, but it leads to freedom. Take it.